Hi, my name's Sam. I own Backwater Reptiles, and what we're going to do today is we're going to focus on one of our strengths here, and that's keeping and breeding chameleons. So what I'd like to do is go through and explain to you in detail exactly what you need to be really successful with your new pet chameleon. This happens to be a veiled chameleon. We recommend them very highly as a first chameleon. Along with a few other species, but these are generally always captive bred, and they tend to do really well in captivity. They're really easy to breed, and they're a little feisty sometimes. Hi there, today we're going to explain one of our specialties here at Backwater Reptiles, and that's how to set up a chameleon cage. So rather than pull one out of the box and set it up brand new, I thought I would just pull one of the tried and true setups that we've put together and explain how we did that. So you can get various sizes. You can get shorter ones, taller ones, wider ones. It just sort of depends upon the size of your chameleon. Try to think about the adult size if you're getting a baby. Sometimes with the smaller cages, the babies have a harder time finding the food, the insects. So there's a fine balance you need to strike between what's an ideal size for that baby, but also how large is that chameleon going to be as an adult. And sometimes you can buy one cage and just stick with it for the entire life of the chameleon. Most chameleons do best in the screen cages. This is a Reptibreeze by ZoomEd, but Exoterra makes them now. There are a few other manufacturers. They're all pretty much the same. You've got the latch, the swinging door. You've got the bottom access so that you can take the bottom out and clean that. As far as cleaning, generally we spot clean about once a day. That way you avoid buildup. There's a much less or lower chance of the crickets, the insects crawling across any feces and then being ingested. So once a day is generally a good time parameter for cleaning the cage. Up here, what we've got, it may look random, but it's actually not. So we've got various levels for the chameleon to use. This is an ultraviolet light. Again, this is ZoomEd. Our favorite, what's worked for us, everybody has their favorites. ZoomEd Reptison 5.0. That's what we use for everything. We have bred hundreds of chameleons. We've hatched out literally thousands of chameleons. That's what works for us. So that's what we're recommending. What the chameleon is able to do here is, if it wants to be down here, it'll get less UV light. If it wants to be up here, it'll get a little bit more UV light. It lets the chameleon regulate the amount of heat that it wants, the amount of UV that it wants. What's key with the plastic foliage here is it collects the water, and that's really important with chameleons, because if you put a water bowl down here on the floor for your chameleon, it will die of thirst, it will die of dehydration, desiccation, because it does not recognize a water dish as a source of water. So what these do is it's a collection area for water that you either missed several times a day. We oftentimes use drips. You can go and purchase something a little more expensive like a Monsoon from Exoterra. We use Mist King misters, but that's because we have so many cages. We've got 50 plus cages. If you're on a smaller scale, you don't need a Mist King. In fact, some people put ice cubes on the top and it just slowly drips down. But what you want to make sure if you're using a drip system is that it's either hitting the branch, the drops are hitting the branch, or you want them hitting a leaf, because that's what the chameleon will recognize, and it will then go over and start lapping up that water. Generally, you would want a drip going for at least 15 minutes. 30 minutes is ideal. When you're doing that, it's easy to flood the bottom of these. So there are two options. Number one, you could put a bowl on the floor, and that will collect the water. So you've got your dripper here, it's dripping down onto the leaves and the branch, and then you can pinpoint where to put that bowl to collect the extra water. The other option is some of the companies make these white bottoms. Instead of perfectly flat, they're actually trays, so they will actually hold water. I personally don't prefer those. It makes it more difficult for certain insects to crawl up onto the side of the screen, which is generally where you're going to see your chameleon picking off the insects. They generally don't go down to the floor. They will, but generally you're going to want the insects to crawl up the sides, and then they'll get picked off. As far as basking, I've experimented both ways. I'm a big proponent of giving the chameleon choices, letting it decide if it wants to bask, if it just wants the UV. Generally, you don't have to worry about the basking light. Most chameleons are not desert species. A lot of them are montane species. They don't like high temperatures. Room temperature is generally just fine for them. One topic we wanted to elaborate on a little bit is what we touched on earlier, the dripping, how you hydrate the chameleon. This is an example of a really simple, inexpensive dripper that costs around $5. And what you would do is you would set it on top of the cage, fill it, maybe a fifth of the way full of water, and then you would position that spout over the target surface. Again, a branch or a leaf, and you would want that to run for 15 to 30 minutes. Now, to be honest, we've also used a simple deli cup with a pinhole in the bottom, and it drips out, drip, 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 just a nice rate. That's kind of the rate you want, just drip, 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 drip. Super inexpensive. If you've got several cages, it's just as easy to use deli cups. We mentioned the Monsoon from Exoterra. It's a little expensive. They are coming out with a unit that's for 1 to 2 cages. It's still a little expensive, but it does work well. We've used it successfully previously. One thing to avoid is the fogging machines. They're mainly worthless. They are supposed to increase humidity and be a source of water, but really the water doesn't amount to much, and the humidity dissipates right away. So no serious chameleon breeder uses a fogger for that reason. It's a bit gimmicky. So we wanted to give you a closer look at the lighting that we referenced earlier. So I had talked about the Zoomed Reptisun 5.0 bulbs. These are ultraviolet. Your chameleon's going to need one of these. Our brand is the Reptisun 5.0. It's worked extremely well for us. This is the fluorescent model. They do also have a compact fluorescent, so it's about half the size, and it's one of the shorter bulbs. Oftentimes they wrap in a U shape. Both of them work just as well. I think you get a little more coverage with the longer fluorescent bulbs if you have the space on top of the cage. But generally you can expect to get 6 to 9 months of life out of these bulbs, and again, can't recommend them more highly.